It's an ordinary morning in a Roman town. The market's opening. Bread is baking. 15,000 people are going about their day. None of them know that the mountain on the horizon is a volcano. There isn't even a word for it yet in their language. And none of them know that within 24 hours, this entire city will vanish from the earth. Buried so completely, the world will forget it existed for the next 17 centuries. This is the last day of Pompeii. And almost everything you've been told about it, starting with the date, is still being argued over today. Pompeii wasn't a poor place. It was a wealthy seaside resort. Villas, bathhouses, a busy port, graffiti on every wall. Mount Vesuvius had been quiet for so long that its slopes were covered in vineyards. People built their homes right up against it. To them it was just a mountain. They had no idea it had erupted before, no warning system, no concept of what was coming. So when the ground started trembling in the days before, nobody ran. Earthquakes were common here, they shrugged and carried on. That was their first mistake. But it wasn't the strangest thing about that day. Almost everything we know about what happened next comes from one person, a teenage Pliny, watching from across the bay. Decades later, he wrote it down, the only eyewitness account of the disaster to survive from the ancient world. He described a cloud rising from the mountain, shaped like a pine tree, a tall trunk of smoke spreading into a flat canopy at the top. Scientists still use his name for this kind of eruption today. They call it Plinian. His uncle, a famous naturalist, sailed his ships toward the mountain to rescue people trapped on the shore. He never came back. But here's where the story gets complicated. Because we're not even sure what day any of this happened. For over 200 years, history books gave one date, the 24th of August, 79 AD. Then, in 2018, archaeologists found something scrawled on a wall inside a house that was being renovated. A charcoal note dated to the 17th of October, and suddenly the clues lined up. Autumn fruit found in the ruins, pomegranates, walnuts, victims dressed in heavy clothing, small heaters still in the rooms. None of that fits a scorching August. All of it fits October. Case closed? Not quite, because the researchers who run Pompeii today have since reversed their position, arguing the original August date still stands and that everything else is a mistranslation. So which is it? The honest answer is, we still don't fully know. 2,000 years later, we're arguing over the date a city died. And that's not even the most unsettling part. The eruption came in two phases. The first was almost survivable. For roughly 18 hours, the sky rained stone. Not lava, pumice. Light, porous volcanic rock, falling like hail, piling up foot after foot in the streets. The people who left immediately, who grabbed what they could and ran for the coast, most of them lived. But many stayed. They sheltered indoors, waiting it out, believing the walls would protect them. The pumice kept falling. Roofs groaned under the weight. Some collapsed. And then, near dawn, the falling stones stopped. For a moment, it must have felt like the worst was over. It wasn't. The worst was still on the mountain, and it was about to come down all at once. What killed Pompeii wasn't lava, it was a cloud, a pyroclastic surge, a wall of superheated gas and ash that roared down the mountain faster than anyone could run. When it reached Pompeii, it was around 300 degrees Celsius. At that temperature, death wasn't slow. It came in a fraction of a second. And this explains one of the eeriest things about the victims. For centuries, people looked at their twisted poses and saw agony, bodies frozen mid-scream, curled in their final suffering. But scientists now believe those postures aren't suffering at all. They're the result of sudden, extreme heat contracting the body instantly, a spasm, not a struggle. Most victims never knew what hit them. Which brings us to the town next door, where the heat did something no one thought was possible. A few miles away sat Herculaneum, closer to the volcano, and hit even harder. There, temperatures may have topped 500 degrees. In the 1960s, archaeologists found a young man who had died lying in his bed. Inside his skull was something that made no sense. Small fragments of black, glossy material. Not bone, not ash. Glass. Scientists believe his brain was flash-heated past 500 degrees, then cooled so fast it turned to glass, a process called vitrification. It's the only known case in the world. Out of roughly 2,000 recovered victims, just one. Some experts still doubt it's even possible. The debate is ongoing. But if it's true, it's one of the most extraordinary things a volcano has ever done to a human being. And yet, the single most haunting thing Pompeii left behind isn't the glass, or the date, or the cloud. It's something you can walk up and look at today. You've probably seen the photos. The famous bodies of Pompeii, people curled up, sheltering, reaching out, preserved for 2,000 years. Except they aren't bodies. And this is the part that stops people cold. When the victims were buried in ash, their bodies eventually decayed and vanished, leaving hollow, human-shaped spaces in the hardened ground, empty pockets in the shape of the person who had been there. In the 1800s, an archaeologist realized what those cavities were. He began pouring liquid plaster into them. When it set and the ash was chipped away, out came a perfect cast of a person's final moment, the exact shape of the space they left behind. So when you look at the figures of Pompeii, you're not looking at remains, you're looking at absence. The precise shape of a mother shielding her child. A man reaching for a door. A dog still chained, twisting against its collar. Empty space, filled in. The last thing they ever did, held forever in the shape of nothing. Pompeii is still being dug up today. A third of it remains buried. Which means there are people down there we haven't met yet, and stories we haven't heard. This channel is about those stories. The last days, the lost cities, the moments history almost forgot. If you want to be here when we open the next one, subscribe. Next time, we're going out onto cold water to a ship everyone said couldn't sink. Until then, some mountains are just quiet, not asleep.